All right. Pialinowan poyowan, kenihki nistoke, naman tikchiwase san tikchiwase tlatlanilistli, pampa naman ashonka tlamachtilistli. Hi everyone, today we're only going to be doing questions because today there is not a lesson. So if you have any questions, put them on the comments of this video or go and comment on the videos on my YouTube and ask a question about whatever topic you want to ask. I try to get to all the questions, but I sometimes get too busy and sometimes I can't answer them. And so I try to answer as much as I can. In these videos, in my classes, I tend to give people a general overview of the class, but that doesn't mean, but it means that sometimes I don't talk to you about the exceptions. And in these videos, the Q&A videos, my goal is to talk to you about the exceptions or little rules or little things that I didn't mention in the class so that you don't miss those fine details. As of right now, if you have questions in the people who are live, put them in the chat if you want to, or you're open to ask questions at any time. Just unmute yourself and interrupt me and I will answer your question. If you don't have any questions, I will go into the YouTube chat and I will look under my YouTube channel and point out stuff that I should point out. Okay. Any tlatlanilistli? First for the people who are live. Okay.
When we usually define some phrases and we use kiniki moilia, so I translate it like how do you say, but moilia is more like telling yourself or something like that.
Yes, that's a really good question. Okay, so remember in the class I taught you that ilia is the verb to tell someone something. So that verb does mean to tell someone something. And if you translate moilia literally, moilia means to tell yourself something. And actually in our variety, moilia has that meaning of to think. So if you say ni moilia, it means literally I tell myself, but it also means I think. So if you've been wondering how to say I think in Nahuatl, there's multiple ways to say it, but one of the ways to say it is ni moilia, I tell myself, quote unquote. And then you're gonna ask me, but wait, doesn't that mean that moilia doesn't mean something is being said? And I'll tell you that, yes, you're right. It's inconsistent because in Huasteca Nahuatl, for some reason, they translate kenihki moilia as how is it said? And that's what I translated as. But if you really think about it, it's really saying, how is it being told or something like that? Like, how is it being told? So it doesn't really make logical sense the way that they constructed it. And other varieties don't use moilia, they use moihtoa. And they wouldn't say it moihtoa, they say mihtoa. So they might say ken mihtoa. So they use that verb ihtoa instead of ilia. And in my mind, ihtoa makes a lot more sense than ilia because ihtoa is to say something and ilia is to tell someone something. So ken mihtoa, how is it said, to me is more logical than kenihki moilia. However, kenihki moilia is the Huasteca way to say it, but they would definitely understand something like ken mihtoa because other varieties say ken mihtoa. But that's a very good observation. So I'll write it out for you all on the chat. So we say kenihki moilia, kenihki, Q-U-E-N-I-H, moilia. That's basically what's on all the slides. Kenihki moilia as how is it said? How do you say? How, it's literally how is it said? But it doesn't actually translate as that. And other varieties might say ken mihtoa, mihtoa, ken mihtoa, like that, ken mihtoa. And also even the kenihki too. Kenihki is a very Huasteca word and it's really two words. It's ken and ihkin. Ihkin means like this. So ken ihkin means like how like this is what you're really saying. But for some reason in Huasteca Nahuatl, kenihki became the way to say how, but other varieties just say ken or kenikatsa or kenin. There's different ways to say that word. You have to know that, yeah, there's multiple ways, but ken or kenin are the most common. All right, that was a very good question. let me, this question isn't exactly about grammar or anything specific, but when I'm looking for language referring to what we call queer or LGBTQ folk in English, I have trouble finding it. Do you have any relevant knowledge or know any sources you can point to? Okay. I don't have any knowledge about how they refer to queer or LGBTQ people because they our modern conventions of gender are not necessarily, I guess, transferred over, or those ideas have not yet transferred over. But I did one time hear a speech about how a different Nahuatl. I listened to basically like a conference of Nahuatl speakers, which was all in Nahuatl, and they did talk about people who were LGBTQ, and they said that it depended on the region. It depends on the region of Nahuatl that you come in contact with, that different regions have different viewpoints on things like LGBTQ people. So I don't know if there's a one perspective on this issue, and I believe it probably depends on what region of Nahuatl you meet. So I don't have a definitive answer, nor do I know where to find something like that. But I'll tell you that you can go into you can find like classical words for things like, I know, for example, the word Cihuatl. It means a person who wants to be a woman. And also, so you could say Nimo Cihuatl, I act or I want to be like a woman. But then there's also words like, I've heard for different, so obviously there's derogative terms, by the way, for LGBTQ people. And then there's also not so derogative terms, but the one that I know of, and there's multiple ones because it depends on the region, is mashochit, which literally means flowery hand. Mashochit, to refer to a LGBTQ person. So como like mano de Florida, mashochit. And then I've also heard the one that I like is yol shochit, but that's one that I would rather use. That means flowery heart, yol shochit. But honestly, I think it depends on the region, and I've heard some derogative terms as well. So don't know. I don't have a definitive answer for you. I say ask a person, a native speaker, when you run into them, they might tell you something different. All right, Ashtlen, Tlazokamati Ashtlen, Kuali. All right, let me share my screen so you could see what I see when I'm on my YouTube channel. Okay, all right, so here, last time that I had my class, I had about 7. I left off on video 7. And here's some comments. For example, this person, Eduardo, says, Nahuatl has a lot of diminutives. Nahuatl has tzintli, tzontli, pil, and tepitzin. Okay, so far I've taught you that suffix tzintli means it makes it small. And so in our variety of Huasteca Nahuatl, we use pil and then the noun and sin. So pil, I don't know, pil amoshtzin, little book. Pil, I don't know, pil cotonzin, little shirt. Pil, I don't know, cuautzin, little eagle, whatever. So Nahuatl has, in classical Nahuatl, if you go look for it, you'll find that there's also other words like tzontli and tepitzin. So in our variety, tepitzin also does mean small. And I just didn't give you that word, but tepitzin does also mean small in our variety. So we do use it. I gave you the word cuecuetzin, but there's also tepitzin, and I think there's pilzin. Pilzinzin is another one. So there's multiple ways, like this person says, that there's diminutives. There are a lot of diminutives in Nahuatl. I only gave you 2 of them, but tzintli, tzontli, pil, and tepitzin are all diminutives, like this person says. So I just didn't give you all of them, but there's more. Ni tlalia, ni tequiwis, ni iwan ni se ve más fácil. Okay, now this is, I have a person who constantly tells me about their variety, and that person is their variety is very similar to our variety. And the differences he points out are pretty much they're still understood in our variety, so they're not issues.
Do you know if when you those diminutives, is there a difference between them? In other words, are they specialized in some way? You use it in particular settings?
Yes, if we go look up the diminutives in the dictionary, which I will show you, or yeah, I'll show you right now. There are ones that mean a tiny, tiny, tiny amount, like more specifically a tiny amount. But I've noticed that they change the exact meaning changes per variety. So let's see. Let me show you on personal lexicon. I believe there's a whole section on diminutive, small. If I just type in small, but hold on, my personal lexicon is barely uploaded. Okay, there we go. It's uploaded. Let's see if I have a size one. No, I don't have a size one. Okay, so I believe if I just type in small or tiny. You all don't see my personal lexicon, do you? Or no, right? Tiny. No, not yet. Small. Oh, I must be in the wrong section. Oh, I'm in the wrong section. Small. Okay. Okay, let's see. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right part of the screen, because I cannot see what I am sharing. Do you all see my personal lexicon, or you see something else? Oh, you don't see my personal, okay. Okay, so now you should see my personal lexicon. When you type in small, you'll see there's all kinds of words for small. And it kind of depends what you're looking at. But like even small child has the word pil a conet. Oh, and this is actually a classical word. But if you look up small, there's cuecuetzin, which is the one we use. There's cuecuetzitzin. Oh, that's cuecuetzin still. Quino. Oh, I don't know that one. Miltomat. I don't know that one. Tochin. No, that's the word that has totochin. Oh, that's something else. Xicontli. Achiton. Oh, yes. Achiton. Achiton is it's a classical word that means a little bit. And in modern Nahuatl, so I only told you the word for small, but Nahuatl also does have a word for like a little bit. And that word is achi. And the problem with the word achi is in some cases it means a little bit, and in some cases it means a little bit more. So we use achiyok. Achiyok means like the equivalent of Spanish as más, but it really has this meaning of like a little bit more. So when I say achiyok, I really mean like a little bit more, but sometimes it gets translated as more. But that word achiyok comes from the word achi, and achi means like a little bit more, just a little bit more. And this achiton is the classical word for meaning a little bit. So if you were wondering where achiyok or achi is more or a little bit more. And we still use it in Huasteca Nahuatl. I know there was a word for tiny, and I don't know why it's not popping up. Oh, there is. Tepitensin. That's the Guerrero way. I thought we had a one in Huasteca though, and I can't find it, but there definitely is. Maybe it's in the app. I can't find it in the personal lexicon, but I believe there's a one very specific in the app. I might have to go find it, but yes, Nahuatl does have more words for small than I gave you. You'll run into them. I just can't find them all right now. Ooh.
Thank you.
Okay, Conepil. Oh, this one wasn't very helpful. This was what video was that? That was video. Oh, I'm missing a video there. Oh, it's just out of order. Number 22. Number 19. Oh, that was 17. Oh, okay. Let's go to number 8. Or let's go to number 7. See if I have any questions here. Gracias por la clase. No. Also, who has been doing the homework? And are you guys having trouble with that? I know not everybody does it, but if you have any questions, sometimes I make errors. So if you find errors, you tell me. Season, nope, number 8. Let's go to number 8. Nikaki, sino al que al haber dos K les cambia aquí y sería Nikikaki. Okay. So somebody, this guy named Eduardo, again, he says, in my variety of Nahuatl that I'm learning, you do not say Nikaki, like the way we say Nickki, but instead we would say something like Nikikaki instead of Nikaki. So and he says that's how they avoid confusion in his variety. I'll say that in the third person, most varieties put it as a k. They might say nikaki like that, nikaki, like how we do it. But some varieties, they do this key. They put a key instead of just a c. So his variety they say nikikaki. And I'll say that there are a lot of varieties on that third person, they're different. And then also in the in the third person plural. So we say nikin kaki, Quin, nikin kaki, but some varieties say nikim with an M, nikim kaki. And then some Guerrero varieties say nikimin kaki, nikimin kaki. So just know that what I'm teaching you is the Huasteca way from Chicontepec, and other varieties has something slightly different. But as you can tell, they're very, very similar. This would still be understandable. Niki kaki would still be understandable. So that's just the dialectical difference.
Huasteca, your personal lexicon is still showing on the screen.
Oh, oops. F. Thanks for letting me know. This is why you need to tell me. Okay, well, now you see my other screen, right? So he's just saying that we say Nikkaki right here with the K. We would write it as a C in the way that we're writing, but in the practical alpha, we have a C right here, Nikkaki. And he's saying they would say Nikikaki with the KI or QUI in our variety. So I'm just saying it's just a variation.
Was there a homework assignment last week? I didn't see one, but
no, because I'm behind by like 3 classes.
Okay, that's cool.
Which is why I don't even have class this time.
I'm glad.
My goal this weekend is to do all the homeworks, and I have a couple of the last 3 like halfway done, but not completely done. And that's why they're not published. But I'm close to finishing them. But yes,
that was fine. I'm glad we didn't have one because I was really busy this week. So.
Oh, great, cool. I don't see any questions on this number 9 that are good questions. So we'll go to the next one. But yeah, let's see. Oh no, okay. That's after the te and the mo. Kanin el token versus kanin itztok. Okay. No machti miak ikane video. Oh, he said I learned a lot in that video. See his word. He's saying no machti. That's a dialectical difference. It normally would be ni momachti in our variety, but he says no machti, and that is some varieties turn the mo into an n, so they say ni no machti. That's a Guerrero thing. And for some reason he wrote no machti. It might be a dialectical difference or it might be a typo right there. I don't know the way to say prepositions like beside, in front of. Oh, he says, I didn't know they were so elegant. Yeah, you know how people always say like languages change the way that you think. Nahuatl, I would say the thing that it changes the way you think is the prepositions, because in Nahuatl the prepositions are all possessed, and they're like body parts or things that you're possessing. So like when you say to my side, you're saying on my ears. When you're saying in front, you're saying in my face. When you're saying on top of, you're saying like on the surface or on the face of me. When you're saying inside me, you're saying in my stomach. That's how Nahuatl expresses all of those things that are prepositions, and that's one of the ways that I guess your mind thinks a little bit different. And that's one thing in Nahuatl. But and the other thing in Nahuatl that changes your viewpoint is the fact that there's no gender. So it's a gender neutral. It's a gender neutral language. So everybody is ya or yehuat or yahua, depending on what variety. There's no difference between he and she. Everybody is yehuat, yahua, yehua, ya. We say ya, but other varieties say yahua, yehua, yehuat, etc. But regardless of the variety, it's generally it's gender neutral. So you don't have to think about what the gender of the person is like you do in English or Spanish. That's one way it changes your mind. Let's see if somebody asked the question in number 11. Oh no, that was the one I just saw. Ha 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 ha. Take it back. Go back. In number 12. This one. Where are you? How does one join the Zoom? For the people who want to join the Zoom in the future, I want you to first catch up to the classes, because we've covered so much, and I don't want you to just come into the class and not knowing anything and feeling lost. So what I recommend for anybody who watches the videos on YouTube is first watch all the episodes, which right now there's about 22. And then once you finish those episodes, email me and or put a comment saying you finished, so I can send you the Zoom code so you could show up in person, because I don't want you to feel behind. Because when it gets too complicated or too busy, or you may not know and you might feel lost, and I don't want you to feel lost. Okay, comments. Let's see. Your Mexica, beautiful. Okay, that's weird. I don't know how to respond to that, so I just like it. Next. Next one. Ne video nechpalewi miak. That video helped me a lot. Wait tlasokamati. Thank you, or a very, very big thanks. Wait tlasokamati. Temachtiani. Thank you very much. A very, very good thanks, teacher. That's what he said literally. Oh, let's see if in my other Q&A session I have questions in the Q&A part. No, nobody did. Okay, next. Thank you. Next. Okay. Neki and Moneki. Oh, no nomashtimiak ne ilwit. I learned a lot this day, or that day. We needed learning material for now. Okay, thank you for making it. You're welcome. I want Nahuatl language learning to be free, and that's why I make it free. Next one, agents and scene. Hey, I already looked at that one. What the heck? Come on, internet. Agents and scene, we did that. Big and small. We did big and small. Ignore that one. Thank you so much. Tictequia, Cihuatl, y Casiwa, mujer, y Zohuatl, y esposa. Oh, okay. So this guy Eduardo is saying that in the variety that he's learning, they say the word Cihuatl for woman and Zohuatl for wife. So he's basically saying, I've seen sometimes the word Zohuatl and sometimes the word Cihuatl, and I actually didn't know that there was a difference. So he's telling me that Zohuatl would be like wife, and Cihuatl would be like woman. And my understanding was Zohuatl was the same thing as woman, but I guess there might be a difference. I've read stories when they say Zohuatl instead of Cihuatl, and I always thought it was the same thing. But he's telling me that apparently Zohuatl would be like if you're saying my woman, quote unquote, my woman, but they really mean my wife. And I didn't know that there was a distinction, but that's what he's saying right here. This guy says, realmente, I am truly happy that you maintain this language alive, this ancient language alive, quote unquote ancient. I love your courses. I want to clarify that people always call Nahuatl ancient. You got to think that every single language has the same age. Because if a language is alive now, it's been alive as long as every other language. So how can a language be ancient unless it's now extinct and nobody speaks it? And since Nahuatl is still spoken, it's not really ancient, unless you're saying ancient in the sense it hasn't changed that much. But I always think it's hilarious that people are like, the ancient Aztecs or the ancient Nahuatl language. It's not ancient. Nahuatl is still alive, and it has the same age as any other language. They all have the same age because they've been around all the same amount of time. Now, if you go back and find like an older language that's more extinct, then maybe you could call that one ancient. But I would say Nahuatl, it doesn't apply to Nahuatl, especially since it's still alive. But it depends how you define ancient.
I think sometimes, it's part of the sort of
the mentality,
invisibility of Native people.
Mm-hmm.
They're not sort of accounted for in cultures, and so their languages are viewed as dead, and their cultures as past, and things of that nature. So I think that may be from where that comes from.
I agree. It's a weird thing because when they tell me the ancient Aztecs, I'm like, well, that was like 500 years, right? So based on that logic, the Spanish were also ancient at that time, so I should be calling them the ancient Spanish, but I don't, right?
Yeah.
Because if they're the ancient Aztecs, they might have they probably met the ancient Spanish. And so, but saying ancient Spanish makes it seem like they're so gone and dead. Like just like you said, like, oh, they're so gone and dead. Because they're ancient. And I just think it's funny. I was like, oh, this ancient language. Whatever. Okay, anyways, me encanta escuchar el náhuatl. El náhuatl es una lengua antigua que conviene conservar. There you go. There you go. Es una lengua antigua. But by the way, Nahuatl hasn't changed as much as like Spanish. So if you go back and find Spanish from like 500 years ago, you'll see that it's pretty different. But if you go and find Nahuatl from 500 years ago, it hasn't changed as much. So every language has a different like rate of change. And so Nahuatl doesn't change as much as, hasn't changed as much as like Spanish. But yeah, I have a hard time reading the Spanish from back then. Thank you. Everybody's thinking, blah, blah, blah. Go back. All right, if once we go through the comments, then I'll go through the homework section and point out the more difficult questions. Okay. Oh yeah, this person did ask me this and I didn't answer on there, but okay. It says, so apparently on February 21st, I think, no, March, I don't know. Oh, he's saying that on that in this year, it's gonna be 500 years since the conquest of the Mexica. Do I have anything planned? Do I have a tapestry planned? No, I don't have a tapestry planned. I didn't think about the dates, but you're right. I believe it was 1521. So I guess it's exactly 500 years in this 2021. I didn't actually, it didn't think about it or it didn't trigger me. I don't have anything planned in terms of like a piece. But he says, how is the conquest remembered by the Masehualme? As a great tragedy? Do they remember it as a great tragedy, or do they see themselves as Mexican first and see it as the founding of as the founding moment of their nation? I don't know the answer to this question, but I will say that a lot of people who are Nahuatl speakers don't necessarily know all the history that is behind like the conquest, or if they do, they know the part that was taught to them by the Mexican government, which of course, when the government teaches something, they're gonna They're gonna tell you the way that makes them look the best, whatever that means. So I don't exactly know because I didn't do my education in Mexico. So I don't know how the story is. But I'll tell you that my mom knows nothing about the conquest. She went to school in Mexico. She knows nothing about it. Or if she does, she knows very, very vague stuff. And so I don't know to what level people, what they teach people in the educational system, or if they do exactly what they teach. I don't know. But I know that a lot of people who are Nahuatl speakers don't necessarily even know the whole history of it. And to me, that's sad because I think the history is exactly where you're like, oh, this happened. This needs to be fixed. And I feel like, I don't know what version they say. If anybody out there who's watching me on YouTube knows what version of Mexican history or how they spin it, you let me know because I have no idea. Does anybody in the chat know, or does anybody in the YouTube, do you, any of you know how they teach it in Mexico? How they teach the conquest or what they say? Because I don't know. No?
Ashkana.
Ashkana. Well, I'm gonna have, you know what? I'm gonna have to ask my Nahuatl teacher. I'm gonna ask her. I believe I asked her one time, like, how much do people know about classical Nahuatl, like actual native speakers? And she said they don't know much. Like they don't study it, obviously, because they don't teach Nahuatl in school. And then when they do, they don't teach classical, so they don't know. Like a lot of things that I know about classical Nahuatl, they don't know, and they don't need to know it. But I'm just saying, like, if you go back, you could find so much text and so much culture and so much knowledge in the older texts because they were written in the 1500s and they have a lot of the ideas. If you go, you can find the Florentine Codex, I believe it's called. It's the Florentine. There's about 12 books, and they all talk about the culture, and they're written in Nahuatl, and they have a translation in Spanish. And the Nahuatl is classical Nahuatl. So you have to understand. There's stuff in the translation that doesn't translate exactly right in the Spanish version or the English version, but when you know Nahuatl, you're like, oh, this is like the nuance. You can understand the nuance based on the structure of the language, and those are the things that I think native speakers could benefit from if they were to go and read it. And my Nahuatl teacher, she has looked at, she does classical Nahuatl, she does studies on that, and she writes papers on that. And she's like, oh my God, there's so many things in here that I didn't even know. And you know, she's a native speaker, and that was her first language. So I feel like a lot of knowledge that's lost because a lot of people can't read classical Nahuatl. But I don't know how they remember it. It's a great question. I want to know the answer to that question. Let's see. Okay, so we finished that. Let's go into the homework. Let's go into the homework. So y'all see this, and I believe I also left off an episode in number 7. So let's go into the homework. Oh wait, those are the answers. Oops. We don't want the answers, or maybe we do. Okay. Oh, okay. So in episode 7, I was just teaching you how to use verbs in Nahuatl. So we had the verb Nehemi, Yolpaki, and Moquesoa. Nahuatl, pretty much all verbs are regular except like 20-ish or so, but pretty much they're all regular. So once you learn how to use a verb in Nahuatl, you pretty much know how to use all of them. And it just comes down to you learning vocabulary, knowing new words. The way that I learned new words was reading books. So there's tons and tons of books of stories in Nahuatl. You just have to go find them and just like go on Facebook groups and you'll find stories. And I learned a lot of vocabulary by reading stories. But just know when you read stories, they're going to use different varieties of Nahuatl. They're going to use different writing systems. And so you might think it's different, but it really isn't. It's the same. It's just different writing systems. And so don't get confused by that. And you can kind of see like how they express themselves. You see all the exceptions. So I highly recommend that you read stories. My goal in the second course, which is course number 2, which hopefully will start soon, is when I teach you the past tense for us to actually do stories. And my goal is to read stories and then for us to like analyze the story and see how it's written, etc. And then that way you can learn vocabulary. But I haven't yet taught you the past tense, and the past tense is the hardest part of Nahuatl. Okay, so okay, with this question, I don't walk versus you are walking, I wanted to point out that Nehemi is to walk, right? But Nahuatl also has it also can translate as you're doing it right now. So ni Nehemi is I walk, and ni Nehemi means it also means I am walking. Just like in Spanish, camino means I walk, and camino means I am walking. Nahuatl has both meanings for those verbs. And just like in Spanish, we have caminando, walking. Nahuatl also does have the ing with tica. So ni nehnentica is how you would say I am walking, like right now I am walking. But I haven't yet taught you ni nehnentica because that requires you to know how to create the past tense of nehnemi, which is nehnenki. It requires you to change to an N. And so you wouldn't know how to do that if I just said, oh, just add tika to it. It's not nihnenemitika. I believe it's nihnentika. So that's why I haven't yet taught you tika. But now what does have one where you're doing it right now, and that's tika. Diego walks, my dad is walking, my dad is not walking, is my friend walking? Is actually let's go look with the answers, that way I know what my point was. So I don't always remember. Daniel is happy, Daniel Yolpaki, we are happy, Yolpaki, we are not happy, Ashkana Yolpaki, Ome no tatajuan are not happy. Oh, okay. You might be wondering how you say both in Nahuatl. In Nahuatl, there is no word for both. It's just ome. So it's the number 2. And so right here, like I have it as my 2 parents are not happy. In English, we could say something like both of my parents are not happy, but in Nahuatl, you would just use the number. So say ome no tatajuan, 2 of my parents, or 2 of my parents are not happy. Yeah, so there is no word for both. You just use the word 2. Shinehnemi, amo shinehnemi, be happy, don't be sad, ashkana shimokweso. These are some crazy ones. 5 of my cats are walking. I got crazy on these questions. We are not sitting, we are standing. Ashtimosewia timoketsa. We aren't. There's nothing really to point out here other than you just need a lot of practice on that one. Let's go number 8. Question number 8. Oh, yes. So for homework number 8, the reason I have the my father, my book, your father, your book, is to point out that you can pluralize inanimates. I mean, you can pluralize animates, but you cannot pluralize inanimates. No matter how many books you have, you cannot pluralize it. So my book or your books, it's always amos. You will see some people break this rule, but in my class, I'm not going to break it. You are my father. We are your children. Okay, I never officially, in this class, I never officially taught you the difference between this and that. So in Nahuatl, I've always been using the word inin. Inin, it means this. But you want to say that, like that thing over there would be inon. Inin and inon. Those are 2 ways to say this and that. However, Huasteca Nahuatl has more than one way. So while you can say inin, that's the long way. The short way to say this is ni. So I know you think that it means I. Well, ni also means this. So you could say, instead of saying inin nomiston, you could just say ni nomiston. No. This is my cat. So the short version of inin is ni. And the short version of inon is ne. So instead of saying this, that is his skirt, you could just say ne ikoton. So ni is this, and ne is that. So both of those are the short version. There's also another word, which is nopa. Nopa also means that one. So you might see other varieties. In our variety, they also say nopa. So instead of inon, you could say ne or nopa. And instead of inin, you could say ni. There's a lot of this and that in Nahuatl.
So could you say ome moamosh? That would mean your 2 books,
Your two books. Ome moamos, yes, Kena.
Okay.
Quali. It also, that ome moamos also translates as two of your books. So it's kind of vague in Nahuatl if you're saying two books or two of your books. Let's say you had, I don't know, let's say you had 5 books, but I'm only talking about, let's say 5 of you have five books, 3 of them are red, 2 of them are blue. Well, I could say, if I say ome azultik amoshli, I could be saying 2 blue books, or I could be saying 2 of your blue books. The of part doesn't exist in Nahuatl, so it's kind of vague to say ome azultik moamos. But it depends on the context, whether you're saying 2 of your books or 2 books.
Okay.
But yes, ome moamos would be your 2 books or 2 of your books. It can mean both. I see you, you see me. Oh, okay, this was just to get you to practice these objects. To me, to you, to him. I hope you've gotten them in your head. These are very important. I translated them as to me, to you, to him, to make it an emphasis that it's the object and not the subject, meaning when you're the one receiving the action, you use these, and when you're the one doing the action, you use the ni, the ti, and the zero, depending on who you're talking about. When I was saying that some varieties use a different object, some varieties don't use quin. Some varieties use quim, Q-U-I-M, and some varieties use quimin, Q-U-M-I-N. This is a Guerrero construction, quimin. So you might see quimin instead of quin, but I'm just teaching you quin for now. I give you a flower, nimitz makashochitl. I give him a flower, nik makashochitl. I give y'all a flower, nimech. Ooh, nimech maka. Oh, that was good. I thought there was an error there. We give you books. Timich, we give y'all our dog. These are just progressions. The cat gives you a flower. Oh, when I read these later, it's kind of hilarious. We don't give you our books. Ashti meets maka to amos. Okay, these are just harder versions of progressively harder versions. Okay, nothing specific to point out there. Oh, number 9 was a class on dictionaries. I see him, I see myself. Oh, okay. Yeah, this one was just to teach you the reflexive mo. Okay, so this reflexive mo is when you do an action to yourself. But one thing that I may or may not have pointed out is that this mo has other meanings. So even though, so this version of he sees himself right here where it says moita, this moita, it means he or she sees himself. That is one translation. But this mo in the third person, moita, it also has a different meaning in Nahuatl that is very similar to Spanish. Kind of like, so you know, like in Spanish, you could say él mismo se ve, like he sees himself. Well, you could also say se ve la casa, the house is seen, quote unquote, the house is seen. That passive construction of something is seen or done, that mo has that same function in Nahuatl. So moita could be translated as he sees himself, or it can be translated as it is seen. So for example, if you're saying like the house is seen, you could say kali moita, the house is seen. Or like how I was telling you earlier when you said the word is said, and I told you that some varieties they would say like tlastoli mihtoa, the word is said. That's another example of the passive construction. Or something like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something like my name is changed. Or yeah, my name is changed. It would be Mopatla no toca. So no toca my name, and Mopatla means it changes or it is changed. So like if I said my name changes all the time, I would say something like no toca Mopatla, my name is changing, or my name is changed. So this mo has the same thing as the same construction as Spanish, like se cambia. That would be like the translation in Spanish. Mopatla se cambia, or moita se ve, I'm trying to think of other ones. I can't think of other ones, but basically this mo has the same function as Spanish, which is the passive construction. So even though here I translate as he sees it himself, it does have other meanings. Or like that meaning of Moilia, quote unquote, it is said, even though it's kind of a weird translation, it's supposed to be that passive construction of Moilia, it is said, quote unquote. Cihuatl, oh, that's when I touch utla and te. Mitznamakiltia. Oh, You know, that's a class I need to do soon, which is the applicative. This he sells to you versus he sells something. Okay, I haven't taught you this, but this part right here, what I was trying to have you see is that he sells something, tlanamaka, versus he sells something to you. So Nahuatl uses different verbs when you do an action to an object, like I sell a thing versus I sell a thing to you. Nahuatl does not use the same verb. And so here, namaka is the verb of selling something, but namakiltia is the verb of selling something to a person. So ni meets namakiltia, or here it's meets namakiltia, he sells it to you. You don't know this yet, but this is called the applicative construction, and we'll eventually do a class where we compare verbs in the applicative construction. But generally, if it ends in iltia, it's the applicative. Or sorry, the causative. This is the causative, sorry. Iltia is the causative, meaning I caused something to happen to you. And then there's ilia, which is the applicative. Sometimes people ask me, like, how do you say for in Nahuatl? The word for in Nahuatl, I kind of told you last week, it's kind of complicated because sometimes it's part of the verb and sometimes it's not part of the verb. And when it's not part of the verb, it's because it's an applicative construction. So there's something like I buy something versus I buy something for you. That for you in Nahuatl is translated as part of a verb. There is no word for in Nahuatl for I buy something for you. So in Nahuatl, it's nikoa, I buy something, and ni meets kowilia. So kowilia is to buy something for someone. Ni meets kowilia. So we use a different verb. And that lia is the applicative form. And I haven't yet taught you because it's kind of complicated. And honestly, it's not very regular in Nahuatl. And so it's kind of hard to teach, but there's just general patterns. But just know Nahuatl uses different verbs for when you do something versus when you do something to a person. Another example is when I taught you guys, I taught you all the word for to speak, nisaniloa Nahuatl, right? I said, I speak Nahuatl, nisaniloa Nahuatl. But if I want to say, I speak Nahuatl with you, like I speak Nahuatl with you, it's not saniloa anymore, it's sanilguia. So saniloa becomes sanilguia, and it to say I speak to you or I speak with you, it would be ni meets sanilguia. So the verb changes. So that's why it's a little bit complicated to teach you the applicative. And it's not regular. This is when I taught you all the prepositions. No, there's nothing specific other than you just have to memorize. You just have to memorize that. Kanin tiitztok versus kanin eltok. Yeah. Let's see what I taught you here. Ooh, I got crazy. No, I taught you more prepositions. And no, I'm pretty sure I taught you. Shimokwapakan, Shimokwapanocan, Shimokwapakan. One thing that I didn't, or I should mention, is that we in Huasteca Nahuatl we put a lot of N's at the end, but they don't actually pronounce it. So you will hear people say Shimokwapaka instead of Shimokwapakan. But I put the N there because some varieties do say the N, and we just try to be consistent. But if you look at the new, or if you look at a native speaker, they might leave the N out. So you might not actually see the N. Chihuahua, more commands. Oh, Neki. Let's see, Neki Mamit's Balewi. I want him to help you. Ooh, Neki's a little bit crazy. I hope you all learned how to use Neki because it is a very common verb. I gave you plenty of examples with Neki. Yeah, that was for a reason. Oh wow, I did a lot of homework. Wow. Oh, this get, I didn't teach you the full thing, but I will eventually teach you when we do course number 2, when I teach you the past tense. This is just like a preview. But this topic that I taught you about being able to put the past tense of an agent and then making it an agent, you can do that with any verb as long as you put it in the past tense. But these class 3 verbs are the easiest. So that's why I gave you those examples. Oh wow. Oh, I love that scene. I love how scene sounds. Big and small. Oh, am I really that behind? I thought I was like 3 classes behind. Or I'm missing 19, I'm missing 20. Oh, and I'm missing probably 21. Okay, I'm missing 3 classes. I'll do them, don't worry. It gets crazy. You see how many questions I have? I have so many questions. This is not easy. Creating all these questions is not easy. And then putting all the answers. Okay, I guess that's all I have in terms of questions. Let me see if you all have any other questions. I probably missed some on the chat. All right, let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, I did miss some questions. What do you think of the vocabulary document, 171 pages by Marcelino Hernández Beatriz? The title, Nahuatl Español de la Huasteca Hidalguense. I don't know. I haven't seen this dictionary. Let me see. Where can I find this dictionary? So according to the Gregorian calendar. Which is the best to use for critical thinking? I don't have an opinion on that book, James, about Marcelino Hernandez Beatriz, because I haven't seen it. But if you could send me a link, then I'll look at it. And then you ask what is the best to use for critical thinking, Nehnewilia or Tehtemolia? Nehnewilia, I know is the way to say I think, but it also means I solve a problem. So Nehnewilia can also be I think something, but it also mean I solve a problem. So I think it depends. If your critical thinking is solving a problem, and tehtemolia is more like investigating. Because ni tehtemolia. Temoa means to look for. So tehtemolia must mean like more like investigating. So I would say tehtemolia is probably better. That's my opinion though. Pensar en cómo hacer algo, to think how to do something. I see. See, that's how they translate it. To think on how to do something. Huh. And nehnewilia is to solve a problem. Nehnewilia. To think how to solve a problem. To think about how to solve a problem. I see. I see I understand your problem now. Because none of them. I would say niktekiwia mostly ni momashtia. How does this sound? Niktekiwia mostly ni momashtia. Oh. So I say it's up to you which verb you want to use, nehnewilia or tehtemolia, because they both mean something slightly different, and I would say either one is good. So if you want to say like critical thinking, maybe do nehwilistli. You have to turn it into a listli if you want to say critical thinking as a noun. It would be nehwilistli or tla nehwilistli. And that would translate as something like resolving a problem or thinking about a problem. Tlahnenewilistli also means a thought, like something that you think, a thought. No tlahnenewilis, my thoughts. No tlahnenewilis. Tehtemolia would be like to think of how to do something. So I don't know. Tla, that would be like tlatetemolilistli. Tlatetemolilistli. Thinking about how to do things. How does this sound? Niktekiwia amoshli ni momachtia. I think you're trying to say with that I use a book to learn. You need something to say in order to learn. So after amoshli, you need to say something like in order to learn. So you could use the Spanish word which is para to say in order to. So niktekiwia amoshli para ni momachtis. Then you have to put the second verb ni momachtia in the future tense. So be niktekiwia amoshli para ni momachtis. I use a book to learn, in order to learn. That's what the para would be. But if you want to keep it in Nahuatl, it would be ika. So you would say niktekiwia amoshli ika ni momachtis. With it, I learned. The ika means with it or regarding this, I learned. So it would be niktekiwia amoshli ika ni momachtis. I use a book to learn, in order to learn. So you're just missing ika there in niktekiwia amoshli ni momachtia. Any other questions, Imo Juantin? I hope I didn't bore you. And I will have a lesson next week. My life is getting crazy, just saying. With my R and then with the freaking, my work is getting crazier. And then I am like affiliating with people and a whole bunch of stuff. I had to sign up for things. It's a mess. It's 500 years only according to the Gregorian calendar, right? Yes, it is 500 years according to the Gregorian calendar. I mean, there are other types of calendars, just like you said. Depends how you determine a year. Okay, any other Tlatlanilistli? Okay, I see. After you stop recording, can we talk about the study group? Yes, let me stop recording now because I don't think any other people have any questions. So let me stop now.